Well, the better team lost tonight. Now, the Vancouver Canucks went out and had a valiant effort over the Detroit Red Wings that they should have won, but they got goalied by none other than Thomas Greiss. We'll break down the game, pluses, minuses, game pucks, and of course, all of your listener feedback as always. Unfortunately, though, just not with a win. Well, it wasn't the Canucks' night. Game 3 of the season, Canucks dropped back down to 500, 3 points in 3 games so far on this road trip. And, you know, being 500 on a road trip to start the season usually isn't that bad. But when you're going up against Detroit, it's a game you want to win against a team that isn't very good, and the Canucks showed that team wasn't very good. The Canucks outshot the Detroit Red Wings something like 41-21 tonight. If you look at the advanced analytics, the expected goals were about 3.7 for the Canucks, and they were only able to score 1. It just wasn't their Canucks night. Some shaky goaltending on the Canucks end to start the game, but let's go break down the game, starting with our game summary as always. We got Yaroslav Halak in net for the Vancouver Canucks, Thomas Greiss in net for the Detroit Red Wings. And one interesting note before this game, Troy Stecher, healthy scratch for the second straight game to start the season for Detroit. Maybe he ends up on waivers. Maybe the Canucks make a claim. Who knows? Just a thought. The Canucks set the tone really early in this game. We had a really good, solid shift from Pettersson, Miller, and Höglander that set the tone really early. There was a really bad reffing mishap early, a quick whistle as Pettersson basically had the puck go through Thomas Greiss as he slid outside of his net and sort of behind it. Pettersson picked up the puck between the goaltender's legs behind him. Early whistle sort of robbed Pettersson of a goal. He might not have scored it, but I think he probably would have. But it's still 0-0. And then after about 10 minutes of solid pressure from the Vancouver Canucks, and icing at the end of a long shift leaves the Canucks back on their heels. A wrister from Stahl gets tipped high by Fabry over Halak to make it 1-0, and the rest of the first was pretty eventful. We had Pettersson drawing a penalty on Nick Leddy, so the Canucks went to the power play. Horvat almost scored, but he fumbled it, so we go to the intermission 1-0 Detroit. Now, the second period, starting on the power play, Horvat got robbed on this one. A textbook bumper play, and Thomas Greiss was insane, robs him there. And then about 5 minutes in, Bo Horvat starts a play with a really good forecheck. He leaves the puck for Connor Garland, who backs around the net, literally just sort of moonwalks behind the net. His head is up the whole time looking at Thomas Greiss. And the second he gets to the goal line, he's looking and he sees, well, his head is away from the post and he's already down. If I hit his head, it will go in. And that's exactly what he did. So he was able to make it 1-1 for the Canucks in this one. Then the Red Wings get their first power play of the game. Jason Dickinson holding call. This was the second worst power play in the NHL last year. They were under 12%, and then a broken Highmore stick makes it basically a 5-on-3. Zadina gets a one-timer, beats Halak short side. We're at 2-1. And that's basically all of the main goals that were scored in this one. There was some iffy stuff. We had an OEL hit on Leddy that was kind of iffy that went uncalled. And then Garland and Höglander had a really nice 2-on-1 that they couldn't get past Greiss. And then we go to the third period. Canucks early on the power play. Rathbone gets tripped by Nemesnikov. This was the worst power play I've ever seen in my life, I think. The Canucks could not get across the blue line. When they did, they never got the puck past like 6 feet inside the blue line. It got turned over and cleared the other way every single time. And this is a night that the Canucks needed their power play to go. They needed something to spark some life, something to get past Thomas Greiss, but they just couldn't get anything to go. And wasting 2 minutes on a power play in the third period down 1 is not going to help. But then we get this Connor Garland play where the play gets called offside late, as in the puck is passed across. Horvat is like mid pass to Garland and the whistle goes and Garland tips the puck and it goes in past Greiss. Now, I don't think it was offside. I watched the one replay. I didn't watch the other replay, but I didn't look at it after, but it didn't look offside to me. And then Detroit's so mad because Garland tipped the puck in their net after the whistle, even though the whistle was so late that it was like pretty bang bang. But Detroit starts to lose it on Garland. Everyone's sort of, Garland gets thrown to the ice. No call is made, which is kind of silly to me. But, the refs kind of let this one get out of hand with stuff after the whistle. They weren't calling it. And then that just let things get out of hand. So then with 9 minutes to go, Connor Garland goes for sort of the reverse hit on Zadina. The puck is down by the Canucks goal line. He sort of turns. Zadina like bends down and reaches over, and it looks really bad at first. It looks like Garland catches him with the elbow and takes him out. And then on further looks, it's like, oh, Zadina literally skated into Garland's back. Like his face hit Garland in the big number 8 on his back. So if you watch this, the refs are not going to call anything here. There's a ref literally right like 4 feet away from the play as it happens. His arm is not up as Zadina's lying on the ground. Then Garland gets jumped and a whole scrum ensues. Horvat with a big takedown, really throwing some heat in this melee. And then they come out and they say, you know what, Connor Garland, 5 minutes, 5-minute major for a check to the head, but now we can review it. And I think the refs saw it initially and were like, oh, I don't think that was a bad hit. And then they saw the reaction. They're like, oh, maybe it was bad. Well, we want to review it. Now, you can't review it. They could call it 2 minute, but I think their fear was, well, if we call it 2 minutes and it was really bad, then it looks bad on us. So we'll call the major and then we can review it. So they review this and then they still give him 2 minutes. Now, the rule is if you call a major penalty and you review it, a major penalty or a match penalty, this is valid for, and it gets reviewed, you cannot 100% rescind the call. You can turn it to a minor, but you cannot take the penalty away entirely, which is why they had to leave it at 2 minutes. I guarantee they saw that clip and they're like, ooh, that might not have been a penalty. But the best they could do is make it 2 minutes, which is unfortunate for the Canucks. After everything's said and done, they even it out. They make it 5-on-5, which I think was probably the right thing to do there. I think they were just like, look, if we okay, we have to give him 2. Let's even everything out to make it a wash. So it stays at 5-on-5. Moments later, Justin Dowling off the backhand literally hits the crossbar with like 8 minutes to go, which would have turned this game on its head. Just super unlucky, sort of fluttered up, hit the bar, and came out. And then with 2.5 minutes to go, more chaos. A Jack Rathbone shot from the point. It goes in. Everyone celebrates. Ref just waving no goal. And you look at it, and Niels Höglander quite clearly skating past the top of the crease, catches Greiss in sort of the helmet with his shoulder. Now, I don't know the exact rule. I tried looking it up, but it's pretty unclear, or at least like the one website that I found the rule on. I wasn't looking through the entire NHL rulebook on what goalie interference is. I saw Drance saying, well, he was outside of the crease, so incidental contact is fine. And that was my interpretation of the rule. However, it would look really bad on them if they didn't call this goalie interference and he did sort of catch his head and then it went in. So Travis Green, I believe, has an option to challenge here, which he does not do. And I guess his thought is, well, we've been dominating, so there's still 2.5 minutes to go. We can still score one. If we challenge this and it gets brought back, and I don't think the refs would have overturned it because he does catch him in the head, even if it was like on the edge of the crease. I don't think they would have overturned it. But then they get, if they don't overturn it, then the Canucks get a penalty, and then the game's basically over, right? Now you're 5-on-4 with 2 minutes to go, and the game's over. So Travis Green banks on his guys being able to score one, which doesn't happen. We have Halak go to the bench with 2:20 to go. Horvat has his best chance of the night, which is crazy because he had a couple of really good chances as well. But a quick rebound off of a Pettersson shot in tight. It comes to Horvat. Greiss slides over to his left and absolutely robs him. And then a giveaway from Elias Pettersson with about a minute to go goes to Sam Gagner, former Vancouver Canuck, and he scores from his own blue line. So unfortunate game for the Vancouver Canucks. They went out, they outplayed the other team pretty handily, doubled them in shots, and they got crushed by a goalie. So let's go into our plus minuses, our game pucks, and then we'll get to your thoughts in a moment here. First plus, like I said, they outplayed them 41-21 in shots. If you do that, you're going to win most of the time, right? The thing about hockey, individual games are quite luck-based, right? When there's only like 3 goals scored in a game, it doesn't take much for that third goal to flip one side or the other, right? So Canucks get on the bad side of this one, but they probably got a little bit lucky last night. So either way, they end up getting no points from this one. I really liked Another plus is that they had their foot on the gas. First 10 minutes of this game, in a back-to-back, they were out. They went out. They played hard last night. They had to go to overtime. They had to go to a shootout, and they went out and they just were all over the Red Wings in the first 10 minutes, and they kept it up throughout the game. So I was pretty impressed by the stamina level to go out there and to just outwork the Red Wings for basically the entire game, maybe other than the last half of the first period. My biggest plus of the night is Connor Garland. Connor Garland had an outstanding game. He played really well. He was again just spinning with the puck. His puck control was really good. He had really good chances. He had his one goal. And then I loved that Giovanni Smith went after Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Garland got in there and went after Smith, right? Like Garland was standing up for his teammates, only his third game with the team, but he's backing his guys, standing up for him. And then all of the chippy stuff, Garland is not backing down from it, right? He's 5'8", but he doesn't play that way, right? He's out there, he's throwing punches, he's getting in skirmishes, he's plays so much bigger than he is. He has a huge heart, and I love Connor Garland. There was nothing to dislike about him this game, and he is going to be such a good player for the Vancouver Canucks. Another big plus, the Canucks dominated the third period, and it's not even close. If I pull up natural stat trick here, and we look at all scenarios, third period, the Canucks were 65% expected goals in to the 35% of Detroit. Expected goals in the third period, 2 for the Canucks, 1 for the Red Wings, basically. High danger scoring chances were 8-2. Shot attempts in the third period. Shot attempts in the third period were 37-8 in favor of the Canucks. The Canucks threw 37 pucks at the net in the third period, and none of them went in. And that's, it's just one of those games. You got goalied, and it's just unlucky. And another big plus, Brock Boeser should be back soon. We thought, or what we have heard, and I actually heard this from Rick Dollywall on Clay's 24-hour stream earlier. Rick says that Brock Boeser was either supposed to be back on the weekend or for the Buffalo game. That was sort of the assumption. With it being a back-to-back and then a 2-day rest, which is what the Canucks have now, they don't play until Tuesday. The Canucks might have been like, okay, well, Boeser, you're like 95%. Give him 2 more days, he'll be good. So hopefully he's back for the Buffalo game, if not the Seattle game afterwards, or not the Seattle game afterwards. Who do they play between that? I have it here. The Blackhawks game after, because they play Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday next week. So hopefully Boeser is back in time for at least some of those games, hopefully all 3, because it is, the Canucks, again, they get 71 shot attempts, 41 shots on goal, but only one of them goes in. Brock Boeser is probably finding the net in a game like this. On our minuses, I wrote down Yaroslav Halak about 10 minutes into the game. He looked really shaky to start. His puck handling was really bad to start. However, he got settled in, and everything that happened in tight, he seemed to be right on the ball. He was always square to the shooter. I think Halak played really well after the first 10 minutes. And even the first goal, you can't really blame too much on him, right? It was a tip shot that was kind of a mess. So Halak was shaky early, but it didn't cost the team in terms of goals, and he looked a lot better in the last half of the game. The officiating, and I'm not even going to talk about the officiating like, oh, they were bad on one side or the other. The officials let things get out of hand after whistles. And this is something you see in every single level of hockey. Like the house hockey that I've officiated, or the NHL, is if people start going after each other after the whistle and you just sort of let it go, things keep happening after the whistle, and then things start happening during play, and then things escalate to the point where it gets out of hand. And it's just emotions, right? It's just the way people are. So that happened in this game. The refs let it get away from them, and things got a little bit more wild than they needed to in this one. And my last minus, the power play didn't convert. They're up against a pretty mediocre power play, or a pretty mediocre penalty kill for the Red Wings. I cannot speak right now. But they had, how many power plays did they have tonight? It's loading. They had, wow, it's just not here. NHL.com is terrible now. They only had 3. They were 0 for 3 on the power play. But they also had a couple of 4-on-4s that they played really well on. But again, one of those power plays you capitalize, and it's a whole different game. The Red Wings capitalized on their power play with the Zadina goal, and it's what won them the game. That was their game-winning goal. Game pucks for this one. Game pucks are easy for this one. For Detroit, it's Thomas Greiss. Obviously, stops 40 of 41. Literally backstopped his team to the win. Absolutely carried them in this one. And for the Canucks, it's Connor Garland, and it's not close. Connor Garland was the best player on the ice, and I already mentioned it in the pluses. Everything he did well, whether it was just causing hell out on the ice, or the goal he scored, that was a beautiful goal, or the plays he was making down low, his spins that he does that work so well with his low center of gravity, just getting into the mix over and over again. He's going to be a player that we love for a long, long time here. So that leaves the Canucks at 3 points in 3 games. They've got 3 more games on this road trip. They got the Sabres on Tuesday. This game you need to win if you want this road trip to be a success, right? You should beat the Sabres. You should beat the Blackhawks, because the Blackhawks look really bad right now, and the Buffalo Sabres are also really bad right now. Even though they're first in the NHL, that's obviously sample size. So the Canucks should go out and they should beat the Sabres and they should beat the Blackhawks, and then they should at least challenge the Kraken, being at the end of a 6-game road trip, and the Kraken have their home opener. I wouldn't be surprised if the Kraken take that one, but these two right here, the Canucks have to go win against the Sabres and the Blackhawks. I know must win 4 or 5 games into the season. Obviously not, but look, we're at a point in this team and with the division they're in that every point is going to matter. It's going to come down to the wire at the end of the season. So if you can go out and get points against the bad teams, that makes losing to good teams, and losing unluckily to teams that you're better than, again, like they did against Detroit tonight, makes it hurt a little bit less. And for these games, Aisha's actually asking, as we're here, do you see Halak starting any of these? I don't. Nope. I see Demko getting all 3. It's a 2-day break until the Sabres game, and then a 2-day break after these 3 games. The Kraken game on the Saturday, and then the Canucks don't play again till the following Tuesday. So I see Demko getting all 3 unless he gets like shelled in one. But I don't really see that happening against Buffalo and Chicago. All right, let's go to your questions. Unfortunately, my thing that I used to put your chat messages on screen is giving me some grief right now, so I might not be able to. I'm going to try again, just by going to the YouTube link and taking this, and okay, now it'll work. Cool. Let me just get this set up really quick. That should do it. There we go. Waiting for chat. And now we can pull up some messages here. So let's go through your questions, your comments on the game here. And we'll start with Chris saying couldn't score on the power play and a disallowed goal. Yeah, those are big game changers. And I mentioned not being able to score on the power play, going 0 for 3, and then the disallowed goal is rough. And it's unlucky, but it was probably the correct call in that case. Max saying goalies should use that tactic more often. I'm assuming referring to Greiss sort of coming out of the crease and getting clipped by Höglander. I think Greiss would probably have rather just made the save, and he probably would have made the save if he didn't get hit by Höglander. So I don't know if it's a little risky. Aisha asking, was Connor Garland always like this? He was so fun to watch. I didn't watch a lot of Connor Garland, right? He's been in Arizona. Last year, the Canucks didn't play Arizona once, so I wasn't following them too closely. Although people in Arizona will tell you that he's always been a super hard worker who's really fun to watch and a guy you'll love to have on your team. And that is exactly what he has been showing tonight. Let's go here. Victoria, how good is it to have hockey back, though? It was a fun game to watch, but differently wished for a win. Of course. And, this was a game that if the Canucks had won this game, right? Let's say that Rathbone goal had counted and then they went on one in overtime, right? Our tunes would be so different. We'd be like, man, that was an absolutely phenomenal performance by the Canucks. They were the better team on the ice by far, and they dominated the Red Wings, this, that, and the other thing. But because one player, Thomas Greiss, changes the entire tune of the game, we're looking at it in a more negative sense, right? I'm seeing comments, about Horvat and Miller, about, ways that they could have done better. But overall, the Canucks probably should have won this game, something like 4-2, assuming that both goalies were equal tonight. and none of those criticisms would be levied in that case. Let's keep going here. Aisha saying Bo needs to get on the score sheet. Yeah, I mean, he did get the assist at least. I think he's got a couple of points. And look, a big part of it is being in position to get those chances. And the fact that we saw Bo Horvat probably get 3 grade A scoring chances tonight, maybe 4, is a good sign, right? They'll start going in. If they're not going in right off the bat, we know Bo Horvat can score. We in the bubble against St. Louis, he was just a machine. Bo Horvat has the ability to score. Sometimes the puck just doesn't go in, and especially when you're against a goalie that just isn't allowing anything past you, unless it's a shot literally off of your head, then it's tough. Let's keep going. DSL saying Pettersson seems to be missing the chemistry with Besser. I thought Pettersson, Miller, and Höglander are fine together. It seemed that every time the Canucks were able to get set up in the offensive zone, it was usually that line. That line was doing really, really well in the offensive zone. Benjamin also saying missing Besser as a game breaker. Yeah. And I mentioned earlier, this is one of those games that Brock Besser should excel in, right? A game where your team is dominating, but you're running into a goalie that you can't beat. Well, who's the best shooter on your team? It's Brock Besser. If there's anyone that's going to beat Thomas Greiss on a night like tonight where he was lights out, Brock Besser is probably that guy, and it might be a different game if that is the case. And Timmy also saying if Mott is back in the lineup, a big difference maker. And yeah, I think the players that were out there for the Canucks, like Lamico and I think Dowling had a pretty good game, and Podkolzin, I think they all did pretty well. And a lot of it is, in the offensive zone, especially since most of this game was in the Detroit zone. But having, injecting Tyler Mott into that bottom 6 just brings the level up so much. And having him on the PK would help as well. So yeah, definitely Tyler Mott being back could make a solid difference. And Timmy's also saying, hoping it's soonish, like in the next few weeks. Yeah, I think that's the case from what we've heard. I mean, I remember when I was at training camp, he was out there after the main group shooting pucks and skating, like just doing sort of like tight turns. So he's skating, he's shooting pucks. I'd assume it's just a, whatever it is hasn't healed fully yet. So he's probably just not ready for contact. So once that is fully healed, as long as there's no setbacks, he should be back in the lineup. Is Mr. Joker asking, is Tyler Mott a 25-goal player if he plays second line? I don't think so. I don't think he's scoring a lot of goals, even if he's playing second line. I think he's more of the puck retriever, working hard in the corners and making things happen, getting the puck, fetching it, and then giving it to the other players on his line. But I think he'd do really well anywhere in the lineup. But having him on your fourth line or your third line would be a huge bump. Leo saying when the goalies pulled, Garland should have been on the ice. He should have been out there 6-on-5. I don't understand why Green loves Chase on so much. I wonder if it's because of their power play setup and where they put Chase on, which is down low, because that's sort of where he's the only place that he's really been good. He's been really good when he's down low. And, he got that one goal last night because he was in the right spot at the right time. And yes, the puck got shot off his leg, but, he scored, right? And he's been pretty good down low. And they would want Garland sort of on the wall, or I don't know. I would have liked to see Garland out there, of course. I think he also might have just gotten off the ice before that too. I'm not entirely sure though. I'd have to go back and look. Let's see here. Timmy's saying Garland feels like almost a more skilled Burrows in some ways. No hate to Burr, but Garland is exciting. Yeah, they do have their similarities, right? In that they're both, they both raise some hell, right? They're both making the other teams mad at them. Garland is more skilled than Burrows, I would say. Not that Burrows was a bad player by any means, but Burrows obviously benefited a lot just from his chemistry with the Sedins and knowing where to be and scoring good goals. But Garland has, I think, more puck skill and better skating. His skating and just his edge work especially is really good. Antonio, do you agree with the goalie interference call? Höglander wasn't in the crease. I think if you're the referee and you're looking at it and you see Höglander's shoulder make contact with the goalie's mask literally right before the puck goes in, I think the referee was right to make that call in that instant. However, it's then on Travis Green to challenge it, and he wasn't willing to risk it. It was close. I don't know the exact rule. I think the exact rule is incidental contact outside the crease is fine. However, I also don't see like Toronto overturning it because it's kind of a bad look. So I feel like if it got challenged, it maybe had a 20% chance of getting overturned. I know that if someone had scored that goal on the Canucks to tie it, I would be furious, right? Let's switch roles for a second, and let's say that the Canucks are, down or up by one, and then someone clips Demko just outside the crease, and then they score right away. We'd be pretty mad about that. So that's why I sort of empathize with the call that was made there. ABD, thoughts on Rathbone tonight? I thought the Rathbone-Burrows pair was good again, and I don't see them really coming out of the lineup anytime soon. Rathbone had one really good play offensively where he sort of like shuffled between a few guys towards the middle of the ice and made a really nice play happen. I really liked Jack Rathbone's game tonight, as I always do. And hello, people coming from Clay's chat after the end of his 24-hour stream. Congrats, Clay, on being done. I hope you get some good rest tonight. Antonio saying Pearson and Chiasson should stay in the bottom six, and they will. Especially once Besser's back. Barring injuries, they're going to be in the bottom six once Brock Besser's back in the lineup, I would think. Just because there's nowhere else for them really to go. Dabnad saying, not going to lie, as soon as we face a slightly worse goalie, we can attack better than we did today and possibly win. I don't think the Canucks can attack much better than they did today. And you have to think, remember, they're against Detroit. Detroit's not a good team. So yeah, they went out there and they really outplayed Detroit, but the goalie's part of the team. However, the Canucks play the way they did tonight against like Tampa, and they probably don't outplay Tampa Bay by as much as they outplayed the Red Wings tonight. Again, not like Vasilevsky's a bad goalie, but just as an example. Mr. Joker, why is Patan scratched? How do you go from first line power play player to being scratched? Well, Patan was just a fill-in for Besser at the beginning of training camp, and I think it's because the coaching staff anticipated Besser being back by the start of the season. So they just put Besser in as a placeholder. And then when they realized, oh, Besser's not going to be back for the start of the season, we then have to rework our lines. And I think it's because they saw Nick Patan as a guy who was outside of the roster, maybe like the 13th forward. So that's the guy you would slot in practice in training camp. So, and also, I mean, Patan didn't practice in that role. And then he probably would have had a spot if they didn't go out and make that trade and pick up Lamico in that Ulevi trade, who ends up being that fourth line guy in the middle instead of Patan. So I think Patan would have had a fourth line spot if it weren't for Lamico. And I think Lamico's played absolutely fine. So he'll probably stay in the lineup, and Patan will be the next guy in if any other injuries occur. Time for Hockey saying Canucks played well. Absolutely. They really did. But hello, everyone. Refs drove me nuts today, says Fangirl. Yeah, I think that's fair. I don't think they were super bad in a biased way. I just think they were kind of bad overall. And usually I don't really like refs usually aren't biased. Refs just have bad nights. And I think I think the entire NHL right now is kind of against the refs. Most refs have been having abysmal games everywhere in the NHL so far. Let's keep scrolling here. Lots of people calling out Brock Besser, saying that he's what would activate the offense. And yeah, and again, it's not like the offense was bad tonight. They just couldn't beat the goalie, and something like Besser, or having a guy like Besser, is the most likely guy to beat the goalie there. Hockey Rush saying thoughts on Podkolzin. I thought he was fine. Again, I don't think he was able to drive a lot of offense. Like I feel like, but again, it's his third game in the NHL, so I'm not too worried about that. How much ice time did Podkolzin get? Do I have it up here? Podkolzin played 10 minutes, which is what we expect him to play, and I think that's a totally fair number. He played 3 minutes more than Lamico did, and just a little bit less than, like a minute less than Dowling, and Dowling had a really good game and got a minute of power play time, which sort of adds that extra minute there. So I thought Podkolzin was fine. I have no worries, and he will get better. Clay says, Clay sent me here. Clay going to pass out. Clay says, good night. Have a good one, Clay. Hope you get some good rest tomorrow. Gmod saying power play's weak, isn't it? I don't like their approach down to the zone. They had one really weak power play, and then they had, I think, 2 decent power plays, if I remember correctly. I think it's really early. They just swapped power play coaches to start this year. And they have guys there like Chason who shouldn't be there. And like we've seen Dowling on the power play. I think once Besser's there and then it moves Chason maybe down to power play 2 and then Dowling off the power play and, all these little tweaks that get made. I think they have the one really bad power play, but other than that, I think it's been pretty fine. High T saying I don't get 2 minutes for a legal check to the head. Well, they called it 5. And then once you call a major penalty, you can review it, but you cannot rescind the penalty entirely. You can change it to 2, but you can't take it away. So if they call 5 for a legal check to the head and they look at it and they say, oh, it shouldn't have been a penalty at all. Well, the best they can do is make it 2 for a check to the head. So they had to do it based on the wrong call to begin with, which is a wrong call. I understand, because when I first saw it, I thought Garland took Zadina's head off with his elbow. And then on the replay, you see, oh no, he skated into his back. So I'm not super upset about that one. And then I think the refs used the scrum to even it out anyways. So it was still a 5-on-5. See that's saying thoughts on Rathbun's play. We already did that a couple of minutes ago, but I thought he played really well. Timmy saying like that Puck Holzen got put out in the second half of the third tonight. Yeah, I think at the end of a back-to-back, he's got some of the freshest legs out there. So he's as good a pick as any to go out there and try to drive some offense. I mean, if you do look at his stat line, it is all zeros, no giveaways, no takeaways, no blocks, no hits, no shots, no pims, no nothing. But he was out there for about 10 minutes tonight. Shy Jedi, do you think the coach is happy with Garland? Absolutely. How could you not be? Do you think Garland deserved the penalty? No, but I understand why they called it. And I just sort of went over that. But of course, Travis Green has got to be ecstatic with Connor Garland and the way he's played, because Connor Garland has been absolutely excellent. Keep scrolling here. Hello, Parker and everyone, says Rome. Hello. The legend sent me, says Chonger. And I think we are getting close to the end here. Flaming Storm saying that goal getting called back is really annoying. Yeah, it's fair. But again, if I'm in the ref's shoes, I probably wave it off to begin with as well, because I see the goalie's head get clipped right before the puck goes in. And then it's up to the coach to challenge it. So I understand why it was called. And I understand why Green didn't take the risk of a 2-minute penalty to challenge it when it probably wouldn't have gotten overturned. Because again, if it had happened to my team, I would have been very upset. Mark is saying, Parker, if you were playing, we would have won. The only way that happens is if I somehow stand in the right spot and a puck hit me and went in, and I played one shift, and that was the only time I was on the ice, and that was it. And I never touched the puck other than that. And I had 6 seconds of ice time and something super fluky happened, then yes, that would have made the difference. Timmy saying, can't say OEL doesn't care about hockey anymore. That's for sure. Yeah, Oliver Ekman-Larsson has been very impressive. And again, I was quite critical of the trade when it happened, just because giving up the first round pick for what seemed to be another anchor contract, and it's too early to say that he's going to live up to the next 6 years of this contract, or 7 years or whatever. Yeah, 6 years of the contract. Because it's a big contract for a long time. But he looks a lot more poised. He looks really good out there. He looks a lot better than he has for the last 3 years. And look, I was just using an informed opinion because he had been pretty bad, especially last year and a little bit the couple of years before. So I don't think my thought was unfair. And again, 3 games have been good so far. I'm a little nervous to be like, all right, he had 3 really good games and he's going to be good forever now. But it's definitely been a good sign so far. Edits, what do you think about Halak? Joined the stream a bit late. No worries. Basically, I said Halak looked a little bit shaky to start, and then he looked really good. The Fabry goal was a tip, so you can't really blame him on it. I thought he was really good on shots in tight. He seemed to be very stable and very square to the shooter. I thought Halak was fine. I was worried, though, after the first 10 minutes or so. Joker saying, what do you think about the offside call where Garland scored the second time? I don't think it was offside. I only saw the replay once, but if I look at it again, I would like to see it again. But I didn't think he was offside in the moment. But I also don't know that he would have scored if the whistle didn't go, right? Because Thomas Greiss stood up and didn't try to save it. And with the way Greiss was playing, he probably would have saved it. Gmod OEL with the dirty spear, though. Yeah, it was a bit rough. He definitely gave him a quick jab below the waist, is what we'll say there. And he probably could have got more than the 2 minutes he did. Derp saying, when are you doing another analysis video? When I have time. It really comes down to after a game like this, probably not worth doing a breakdown for because it was really obvious what happened. The Canucks were really good, Greiss was really good, and Greiss won. But it just comes down to what I like if I have time the following day and it's a game worth doing, which I just haven't run into yet. But we'll see. There will be some coming up for sure. We are going to wrap up in a couple minutes here, so get your questions in right now. I want to wrap up just past 7:30 here because I need to get some dinner real quick. Shy Jedi, do you think the Canucks will play better or worse once Besser comes back? They're going to play better. Adding a bona fide first line winger to your team is not going to make the rest of your team play worse. If anything, it's going to make them play better. The team's going to be fired up to have Brock Besser back. And yeah, the Canucks played excellent tonight, but remember, it was against Detroit, right? It's not like the Canucks went out and just put up 41 shots on the Tampa Bay Lightning or the Colorado Avalanche, right? It was Detroit, and they play Buffalo next, so don't put too much stock into these games. These are teams that the Canucks should be better than. If they're going to be a playoff team, they should be better than these teams, which they were. They met the requirements. They just weren't able to score enough goals, and a guy like Brock Besser is only going to help with that. We have... Sorry, this one looks cut off. Oh, Matt retracted. Okay, we'll keep moving. Christopher saying new players like OEL and Connor Garland and Podkolzin are playing really good. I agree. I think of the three, Podkolzin has been good, but I think people were overhyped on him early in like before preseason and stuff. But Podkolzin is sort of doing exactly what I expected. However, OEL's exceeding expectations, and Garland's just been so awesome. So excited to watch him play. Timmy saying, would you prefer Besser fills the Höglander spot on the first line or the Pearson spot with Bo? I think you have to try going back to the Lotto line, put Besser with Miller and Pettersson, and then bump Pearson out and put Höglander in there with Horvat and Garland. And that gives you a super high skill top line with Pettersson, Miller, Besser, and then a super hardworking second line in Horvat, Garland, and Höglander. That is going to be so annoying for any team to play against, which I kind of like. However, you could, keep Höglander on that first line as sort of your the guy who goes in and messes about and retrieves pucks, and then put Besser on the second line, so you have a bit more skill on both. It really depends on what they want to do. Just going to scroll through here. Diehard Red Wings fan, what's your opinion on Seider so far? The Canucks broadcast was very high on Seider. He looked really good. I was impressed with him. He looks like a really, really solid player. Really good defenseman. But I haven't watched a lot of him play again because I didn't watch any of him last year with the Canucks not ever playing against the Red Wings at all. I was really dialed into the North Division last season. Matt mentioning that a lot of the shots came from the outside. That is pretty true. If you do look at the heat map, everything is sort of along, like, just in like the inside of the face-off circle. So still kind of on the outside, but kind of down low. But yeah, not a lot in the slot. The slot is very empty if you look at the heat map. Meanwhile, the one goal that Detroit scored was directly in the slot off that one tip. Cietz, what do you think is lacking on the power play? I just think mobility. I think the power play is pretty stagnant, and that was my complaint with it last year. But I'm hoping with Besser there to give it a really solid second shooting option will add a lot to it. We're going to put the cutoff here really quick. I'm going to type cutoff in the chat so that way I don't keep going here for too long. Shy Jedi says, who's our most valuable young player and MVP defenseman? Well, only 3 games in, our most valuable young player is probably, I mean, it depends what you call a young player, right? It's like Quinn Hughes or Pettersson. But if you're talking like guys who are rookie or second year, Höglander, Rathbone, Podkolzin might be the most important right now, seeing what he turns into, because we know Höglander is going to be a really good NHL player. It really looks like Jack Rathbone is going to be a star. And then, as long as Podkolzin can pan out, that's one of the most important things for this team, I would say. MVP defenseman so far, it's probably Quinn Hughes, just because it's Quinn Hughes. But again, it's only 3 games, so it's really hard to make a decision like that. Let's keep going here. Winnie, would you rather have Gadjevich or any of the other PTOs like Jason, Dowling, Highmore? I think they're all so interchangeable that it doesn't matter. Shy Jedi, does Garland add grit that we're missing? Yeah, lots of people are saying like, oh, you don't have any toughness, and these guys are too small. And it was sort of brought up. I think it was on Clay's stream this morning. It was so long ago, but it was like he was mentioning like, oh, you can't have like 2 small guys on a line. Like someone was saying that you can't have like 2 small guys on a line, like having Garland and Höglander at the same time or whatever. And it's like Garland does not play small. Niels Höglander does not play small, right? There's a big difference between being small and playing small, and both of them play much bigger than they are, right? Garland's out there getting into trouble, drawing penalties. He was like 4th in penalties drawn last year, like 2nd in penalties drawn last year. He was in the top 5, and that's super valuable. So yeah, he's very gritty, I would say. Red Wings fan also wants an opinion on Raymond. Again, I haven't seen much. He looked good. He looked good tonight. Fangirl with the super chat. Thank you very much. Saying thanks for joining Clay on the stream this morning. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Fun to spend an hour there. If you want to go back and watch me spend 45 minutes talking to Clay on his live stream, it'll be at the 10 o'clock a.m. hour. Shy Jedi saying, anyone notice how savage the Canucks broadcast was tonight? In what way? I didn't really notice anything like that. And the last question we're going to take here is DM saying, what do you think of Poolman? I thought he's been playing a really solid, strong game. Nothing too crazy. He hasn't gone out and made any real mistakes. He hasn't made a lot happen, but I think he's been absolutely fine. And as advertised so far. And with that, we are going to wrap up here. Thank you guys for hanging out on this post-game show. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the like button. If you missed any part of the show, you can rewind back to the beginning, or you can listen to it on your favorite podcast platform in a few minutes here. And a shout out to it moves the entire camera, our backstage member and our GOAT member, Lucas, Adam and Lucas. Thank you guys very much. If you want to become a member, a VIP, there's a join button down below, entirely optional. You get a couple extra perks. And with that, I am out of here, and I will see you guys in the next one.